up on Mountain News this morning, Kentucky River Regional Animal Shelter pushes on with its search for a new long-term president. Plus, a new initiative could bring individual bathrooms but shared sinks to public schools in the Commonwealth.
Dedicated to Eastern and Southern Kentucky, this is WYMT Mountain News This Morning.
Good morning, I'm Madison Carmouche. We're at 5:30 this Wednesday morning, and it's a little foggy out there, so maybe you should take it slow. But let's send it over to meteorologist Mace Michaels for a look at your forecast.
It's our classic locally dense, patchy fog type situation, Madison. In Moorhead, no fog problems at all, especially here along I-64. It's mostly clear in 54. But when we look at our hazard camera, wow, a different case. The low clouds and fog definitely locked in, sitting at a 46 temperature. So watch out for those patchy areas of locally dense fog as you travel this morning. Williamsburg visibility has been near zero here for a good hour or so. Jacksboro right around 2 miles. And in Hazard, we've been fluctuating from near zero, half mile now, to up to a mile at times. Pikeville visibility also near a mile. So watch out for the fog, as we say once again. Mid-40s to mid-50s for your wake-up temperatures. Some cool pockets like a 45 at Clintwood to as warm as 57 right now in Monticello. Mostly sunny forecast. That's what's ahead for us today. With mostly clear skies now other than the fog, and we should stay on the sunny side through the afternoon with quiet high pressure controlling our weather. Madison, a nice day with high temperatures into the mid-70s.
All right, Mace, thank you. A second person is facing charges in a moped crash that killed a 10-year-old girl in Whitley County. Wade Martin is charged with murder and driving under the influence. He is accused of drinking and then driving a moped that crashed into a car on I-75 on August 4th. Denisha Martin, the mother of the girl who died, is charged with complicity to murder. Her criminal complaint says she admitted to knowing Wade had been drinking beforehand. Wade and the child were flown to UK hospital where the girl died. Both suspects are being held in the Whitley County Detention Center. One person is dead after a fire in Mason County, West Virginia. Several fire crews responded to a large house fire in the Glenwood community late Monday night. A 74-year-old man who lived alone at the home died and his body was sent to the medical examiner's office. No word on what caused the fire. State police are asking for help investigating a deadly crash in Pulaski County. KSP troopers were called to the crash just before midnight on Saturday. They say Derek Glover, an off-duty Lancaster police officer, crashed into a motorcycle driven by a juvenile not wearing a helmet. The child was pronounced dead at the scene. Glover was not injured. If you have any information about the crash, you can call 502-782-1847. A Jackson County man was sentenced to 22.5 years in prison for the production of child pornography. According to his plea agreement, 41-year-old David Parkey exchanged a series of sexually explicit messages and photos with a minor last year. In the messages, Parkey directed the victim to take photos that were sexually explicit and then send them to him via social media. In northern Kentucky, investigators are looking for more victims of an accused serial rapist. Billy Highlander is accused of raping 4 victims, including one that was younger than 10 years old. Investigators say the assaults happened in Pendleton and Robertson counties. Detective Ken Hall says they believe Highlander finds victims through the women he's involved with. Hall asks anyone who thinks their child may have been a victim to call Kentucky State Police. A Somerset man was sentenced to federal prison for faking his death while trying to avoid paying child support. 39-year-old Jesse Kipf was sentenced to 81 months for computer fraud and aggravated identity theft. Kipf pleaded guilty earlier this year on those charges. The incident stems from a situation where he used a computer to access Hawaii's death registry system last year. He then created a fake death certificate for himself. The Kentucky River Regional Animal Shelter hosted its first board meeting since former board president Tony Vaughn stepped down. WYMT's Amelia Lee was at the meeting last night.
Who is in charge? The question that led the Kentucky River Regional Animal Shelter Board meeting, just 2 weeks after former board president Tony Vaughn stepped down. At the meeting Tuesday night, the board and county judges started their journey of restructuring and clarity.
It was a really smooth meeting. I feel like we got a lot of involvement, which is what we really wanted.
The biggest item on the docket, finding an interim president who understands how CRAS operates.
That way we can, continue moving forward, because there are certain decisions we can't make without those roles in that, that full executive committee.
Bill Caldwell was voted as the interim president and Donna Singleton as the interim vice president. Both decisions were unanimous.
Those are two people that are working really hard for the shelter every single day.
The plan is for the permanent president to be voted on in the September or October board meetings. In terms of board members, there are typically 3 per county. Those spots are not currently all filled.
We're going to reach out to all 4 counties and have them start working on some nominations of who they would think would be appropriate for the board seats. Board member Brandy Adams says she is thankful for the help of the community at the shelter during this time of transition. The amount of support that we have received just in the last 2 weeks has been incredible.
Building back for the animals. In Perry County, Amelia Lee, WYMT Mountain News.
The turnout included approximately 27 folks in person and 32 on Zoom. Potential future meetings were also suggested. Thousands of AT&T employees are on strike for what they are claiming is unfair treatment. Groups have been on strike since Friday throughout the southeastern part of the U.S. Workers in Harlan County have been encouraging those passing by to honk their horns. The workers are represented by the Communication Workers of America. District 3's Local 3372 President Frank McMillan says the company is not properly supporting its employees.
They're bringing people to the table that are not making good decisions and not bargaining with the members that we have sitting down there. Our members are devoted members. They love their jobs. They love to work.
The workers striking in Harlan County are just a few of the nearly 17,000 throughout the district. An AT&T spokesperson says claims of unfair labor practices are not grounded in fact. You can read their entire statement on WYMT.com. There was a debate in Frankfort yesterday over school restrooms. Part of it was over discipline issues in restrooms, but most of the discussion yesterday in the Interim Education Committee was about a new design that has both individual private stalls, yet common areas for sinks. As WYMT's Phil Pendleton explains, this new design is being used at a middle school in Lexington.
Open concept.
Representative Matt Lockett says parents came to him concerned about the restroom design at the new Mary Britton Middle School, which have open sinks and mirrors and enclosed individual stalls.
Yes, there are separate stalls, but each stall is gender neutral. Each stall can be seen from the hallway.
Lockett says parents are concerned about girls using stalls that a boy just walked out of.
She comes home to tell you as her parent all about this experience. She tells you that she's scared, she's embarrassed, and doesn't want to use the restroom at school.
But Fayette County's superintendent says the restrooms are not gender neutral.
The principal has determined that there will be a set of restrooms that are for boys. There's a set of restrooms that are for girls.
Superintendent Demetrius Liggins says in Lexington the biggest concern 10 years ago in schools was about guns. Now, he says, it's about what takes place in restrooms. Recently, there's been concerns of everything from vaping to violence in restrooms, with some students not wanting to use them, and teachers also have their concerns.
Are concerned about being assigned to a restroom to supervise inside of a restroom where one wrong accusation could ruin your career.
Lockett says language is being proposed to require all public schools with more than 100 students to designate 90% of their restrooms either for boys or for girls. allowing 10% for all access restrooms. In Frankfort, Phil Pendleton, WYMT Mountain News.
The New Britain Middle School in Lexington is set to open in fall of next year. The Knott County School Superintendent is retiring. Brent Hoover announced his decision in a letter to the school community. He said it was a deeply personal and emotional decision after spending nearly 30 years in the district. He became superintendent in 2021 after the death of Kim King. His retirement is effective October 1st. You can read his entire statement on WYMT.com. Officials say they have more than 3,000 acres of build-ready sites in eastern Kentucky. That was one of the figures brought up during the One East Kentucky luncheon in Hazard Tuesday. Several leaders gathered to discuss economic development. One East Kentucky President Colby Kirk says they work with leaders in cities and counties to bring in more jobs.
So we try to help set a vision for those sites with them. And marketing plan for things like that. We're out on the road talking with companies, trying to promote these sites all the time.
Officials say they are focusing on manufacturing and industrial type jobs to bring into the region. When we return, an iconic hat made its way to auction and sold for more than $500,000.
Abundant sunshine expected later today, but this morning dealing with a little fog. The full forecast is next.